Being able to sail through toll booths automatically can save drivers a lot of time and frustration, but if you don't take steps to control your toll costs, you could be in for headaches later. I'm Deborah Lockridge with Heavy Duty Trucking, and this is HDT's Leadership Insights. Today, there are more than 50 toll authorities, and the tolls they collect are growing. In the past decade, consumer prices have increased almost 17%, but toll costs, 73%, according to numbers from PrePass. Most major toll roads are moving to all electronic tolling, which saves time, cuts emissions from idling, improves safety, but there are some potential pitfalls, and we're going to talk about those on this episode. Before we get into our interview, don't forget to follow HDT on social media and check out other video podcast episodes on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. This episode of HDT Leadership Insights is sponsored by and created in partnership with PrePass. And with me from PrePass is Bob Trent. He's Vice President of Communications. You may be most familiar with PrePass from their way station bypass services, but they also work extensively with customers on managing their tolling expenses. So, Bob, welcome to HDT Leadership Insights.
Thanks for having me on. I learn things every time I watch this program, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thanks so much. So, start, I guess, with the sort of the basics. I understand there are two ways electronic tolling can be done. Tell us a little bit more about those.
Well, first, I want to say before we get into the tolling topic that I know, and we know at PrePass, that tolling can be painful, a painful topic for motor carriers, but sometimes toll roads are the only option, or perhaps an option that a motor carrier chooses, whether it's their business model or maybe even just a strategic use. Occasionally, toll roads have become a reality for most fleets. Now, fortunately, tolling has become easier in almost every part of the country. It's become rarer for a driver to actually encounter like a manned toll booth. So for the most part, most toll agencies have gone to all electronic tolling, or AET. Now, all electronic tolling comes in two basic versions: toll by plate and toll by transponder. But the two of those work very differently, and those differences can really affect the bottom line of a motor carrier that chooses to toll.
So tell us a little bit about, I guess, what happens at one of these electronic tolling facilities as a truck comes through, and how does that differ depending on whether it's by plate or transponder?
So both systems have to follow three steps. However, how toll by plate and how toll by transponder accomplish that differs wildly. And the differences affect, as I mentioned, the trucker's bottom line. So the first step is to actually identify the vehicle that's being tolled. Now, toll by plate actually requires a loop that's embedded in the road, and as the vehicle travels across it, it counts the axles. And in most cases, that's how the toll amount is determined, by the number of axles. Sometimes a toll by plate authority will have a reader on the side of the road or overhead to look at how high or the vehicle is, or how long, or how much it weighs, and that will affect the toll. But really, it's that loop that determines the number of axles that results in the charge. And now, toll agencies still might use a loop in the road in a toll by transponder situation, even though the device actually communicates that information automatically. So the transponder is mounted on the windshield. It contains actually all the information about that truck and the carrier. It communicates that directly to the toll authority itself. So the second step is the toll authority actually has to identify the toll road user, the vehicle, and the owner going through the toll lane. The problems with toll by plate are really simple. Plates get dirty. Whether it's snow or mud or dirt. In fact, sometimes cameras even have a difficult time picking up a plate at the wrong angle, or that flat lettering that so many license plates have moved to. All difficult for a camera to read and pick up. And then the toll authority has to take that image, again, often blurred, and then match it to a registered owner. Now, if that registered owner is in that state, not as difficult. If it's out of state, the toll authority actually has to get a third party involved to identify vehicles from out of state. And so the toll authority is taking a blurred image with sometimes difficult information to get to match it to the owner. All of that equals administrative cost, man hours. And the toll authorities don't eat that cost, they pass it on to users. Now, by contrast, a transponder is 99% accurate. Weather is not an issue. Matching that information that's transmitted goes directly into the toll authority system because it's registered with that toll authority. It's easy, it's simple, and as a result, much less expensive to the toll authority, and toll road users who use transponders benefit. And the third step is to quickly and accurately actually bill the customer. Now, not just from our perspective, but the Minnesota DOT actually did a study, and they found that with toll by plate, the toll authority assesses the toll when it charges the registered owner of the vehicle, not when the toll by plate camera actually photographs the plate. Now, that delay is due to the administrative task of, okay, we have a picture, can we discern what it reads? And then can you match that to the actual vehicle owner? All of that takes time. And eventually they will get that out, but toll roads may not get paid as quickly with that toll by plate, and that delay is going to result in higher costs. The other aspect of toll by plate is that toll authorities send customers a manual or paper invoice, and there's a due by date associated with the invoice. And if the customer fails to pay by the due date, additional charges and fees get quickly added to that toll transaction. It's not uncommon for a charge of $2.50 to quickly escalate to much more than that with the addition of other taxes and penalties. And again, the delay, if you miss the invoice, the paper invoice, you might not even know you owe that money. We'll go over some more examples later, but again, toll by transponders, they have established accounts, the users, the toll charges, they can be assessed immediately. The toll road still sends maybe a printed invoice, but there are tools that motor carriers can use, say informed tolling from PrePass, and there are others, but you can immediately assess those tolls as soon as the tolling authority posts them.
So, Bob, what kind of difference do we actually see in toll rates between toll by plate and using the transponders?
Well, I'd like to refer then back to the Minnesota DOT study. They placed the administrative cost of a transponder transaction at about 10 cents each, whereas a toll by plate transaction is at about 35 cents. Not a lot, but that gives you a sense of how much more tolling authorities are going to charge just for a toll by plate toll in comparison to a toll by transponder toll. Now, a study is one thing, but we have some real life toll road examples that I can give you from around the country. So Pennsylvania Turnpike, a 5-axle tractor semi, 80,000 pounds that's going from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia. A toll by plate charge is about $361.90. Toll by transponder is $179.40, much less, half even. The New York Thruway, same 5-axle tractor semi, 80,000 pounds going from the Pennsylvania state line to the Massachusetts state line. Toll by plate is $114. A toll by transponder, only $88. Still a lot of money, I know, but much less by transponder.
Any specific, sort of horror stories you've heard from customers about how some of these fees and fines and whatnot have added up?
Well, I guess by degrees, they're all horror stories. But there are some that are worse than others. So I'll start with a common example that could really happen to almost any motor carrier. So a standard $9 toll charge can increase by 1,000% to maybe $100 or $1,000 without really even noticing it. And with this example, let's say a standard toll charge is $9, and that happens to be a plate read of maybe a trailer. And that will happen when the agency then looks up the trailer for the state with the DMV and determines which trucking fleet it belongs to. Because they do that, mating agencies will call that a violation. Now, maybe there's a mismatch. And so all of a sudden, a standard toll increases. And in that case, that $9 standard toll gets an additional 5 fees, totaling $87.50. just for that one mismatch, one record-keeping error. If you look at what the fees are, you may find it interesting. In this case, it's actually treated very much like you broke the law, because you'll notice there are things like a civil penalty on that invoice, a civil penalty surcharge, a combat violent crimes fee, an ambulance county fund, and administrative fees. So you can see it's unfortunate that a $9 standard toll charge that quickly turns into a $96 fee just by having just one single record issue with the plate. So let's take another look at this time a $294.50 toll charge that increased almost 814%, $2,100, one toll charge.
Whew.
This trucking company incurred $2,100 in toll fees because maybe they didn't have a transponder, or as can sometimes happen, maybe the transponder wasn't registered to the appropriate vehicle. The transponder's in the wrong vehicle, or maybe it wasn't mounted properly and the tolling authority actually didn't pick up the transponder. PrePass helps our customers with that, but maybe this truck didn't have that. Now, ultimately, because that plate wasn't registered, the tolling authority viewed that as a violation. There was a mismatch there, and the trucking company honestly wasn't even aware that it had occurred.
So, Bob, what are some of the ways that fleet managers can keep those toll costs in check?
Well, fleet managers, motor carriers, they can gain visibility and control with one provider like PrePass that can provide a data analytics software. Really, it's just software that reaches out to those toll agencies and pulls in all of their toll charges for all trucks into one place. And from there, all sorts of, I would say, money-saving things occur, and a better way to really control your toll cost. Motor carriers can eliminate or at least reduce toll violations by outfitting their trucks or transponders. And sometimes they come with a sticker. License plate reads, again, are really a high-cost way to go about tolling. Making sure that the vehicle is identified properly with the tolling authorities, and when they register accounts or when they register with PrePass, making sure that all of the information is correct that's assigned to that transponder itself. Again, avoid plate reads and max tolls. Keep up to date with plate management on both power equipment and on trailers. Transponder management is also important. Make sure that it's visible in the right spot. And then rely on those data integration tools and analysis. A tool like Informed Tolling can help carriers manage all of their tolling. The software monitors daily tolling activity. You can even set up automatic alerts and notifications when a max toll comes in, when a transponder that's been maybe doing $100 in tolls a day all of a sudden has $1,000 in tolls a day. Those are things that without this type of software can happen. And if you add that up to 30 days in a row, that can amount to a lot of money. So it can eliminate toll fraud even, or a stolen toll transponder.
Sounds a lot easier than dealing with reams of paper invoices.
You should see some of the filing cabinets that we've seen in our customers. They can just be stacks and stacks of boxes. And for a major motor carrier with lots of staff, well, as much stuff as they can afford, even that's a daunting task. But for a smaller carrier, it can be quickly overwhelming.
All right, great. Well, Bob, we are out of time. Thank you so much for your insights on tolling, automatic tolling, and saving money. This has been Bob Trent with PrePass, discussing how trucking fleets can better manage their tolling costs. And you can find more in-depth information on their website, prepass.com. And you also can search for tolling-related articles on our own website, truckinginfo.com. I'm Deborah Lockridge, and thanks for tuning in.